Hey there, it's Laura Dominic. Thanks for joining me on a Plan for Joy podcast. Each week we'll be talking about things that will help you break the cycle of depletion. You know, the one that has you going from doing all the things to feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, resentment, anger, to sucking it up and starting all over again. And instead, learn to break the cycle and contribute from a place of abundance. Are you ready? Good. Let's go. Hello and welcome to A Plan for Joy. This week I am bringing you another interview with a friend of mine who is actually the daughter of a friend of mine. So second generation friends here. I'm going to be speaking with Jennifer Hanna. We've known each other for a long time. I watched her grow up and get married and start a beautiful family. I had the privilege of being her confirmation sponsor. And so I'm so excited to introduce you to her so we can talk about overwhelm. While that might seem like a funny thing to say, she's, as you'll find out, no stranger like most of us to overwhelm. And so we just want to have a conversation about that. So as way of introduction, Jennifer Hanna is a Catholic homeschooling mother of 9 children, ages 16 to 1. And there is a lovely set of twins in there. She's been married to her husband, Scott, for 17 years. She used to live up by me. They moved across the country to just outside of Houston, Texas. And as she put it, when I'm not at the height of overwhelm, she enjoys sewing, learning about natural health and living, and definitely playing board games. So welcome, Jennifer. I'm so excited to have you here so we can have this conversation and bring, I like to think of it as real women to, and real experiences out to people so they know they're not alone. Really, it's just always nice to know you're not out there on an island.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So currently, well, we'll get into a whole bunch of stuff, but give me just some of your background.
Currently I am with my family staying at my parents' house because we have been displaced from our home for the past 5 months due to mold. So our house had to be remediated of mold, and what we thought was going to be a month-long journey, maybe max, ended up taking this long because we found out that every single wall in our house was infested with mold. So
unbelievable. No.
Yeah. So I'm in the height of my overwhelm right now.
You've homeschooled, you've moved across the country. This is not the first time you've had to live outside of your own home either. So, and then in the midst of all this, had a set of twins, which was
yes,
can be described as overwhelming, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. Still there.
Yeah. Because how old are they now?
They're 3. So they're typically 3.
So what do you think has been helpful to you during all of these different times of overwhelm in your life? Like what do you draw on to kind of get you through this? Because you're still laughing, so that's good.
So I think that primarily my faith, obviously. I think prayer and receiving the sacraments regularly, like those two are pivotal to your mindset when it comes to things happening around you that you can't control. And so that's probably by far the top. Also, I have a very supportive spouse. So Scott is, he's right there stressed with me, but he's there with me. And we remind ourselves regularly that we would much rather go through all of this together than to have life without each other. So, we have, recently, actually, we've had several friends who are going through some pretty nasty divorces right now. So it is a reminder to us to really foster our and make sure that our marriage is healthy through all of these stressful times. because I know that it can be easy to not be. So that's huge. And then, my mom used to always tell me, like, when bad things happen, you have two choices. You can either laugh or you can cry. And so, it's kind of, just looking at your situation and seeing the good in it, I guess, is
right.
More.
I'm sure there have been many crying times, but
oh yes. But being able to still, even in the midst of everything being horrible, just being able to count your blessings, I think, is huge.
That's great. A gratitude mindset makes a huge difference. But I want to go back because you said something that made me think of this. How does a mother of 9 children in the midst of chaos even have a prayer life? So what does that even look like to you? Because I know a lot of women fret over that. Like, they're like, oh, my prayer life is horrible. I can't keep a routine. I can't do it. So what does that look like to you?
Yeah. So I just want to preface this that I am very not organized, just naturally. Like, I have a very phlegmatic, sanguine temperament, so I don't stick to routines very well. So my prayer life is pretty chaotic to somebody who is type A. Like, I don't do the same things every day. Like, I have one of my good friends. She's very type A, so she prays an hour every morning, and she has her set, prayers and everything like that. I'm just not like that. So when I wake up in the morning, I try to get in a morning offering, and some basic prayers that, take 5-10 minutes. And oftentimes it'll be with my kids, because, I want them to get into that habit as well. And then we try probably once or twice a week to get a family rosary in. At this point, like, we go through phases where we're able to do it every single night, for a couple of months or whatever, but then life happens and things get thrown off and it doesn't happen. So right now, we're trying to get that in a couple times. And then just throughout the day, just, even a simple, like, just Jesus, help me get through this, it has been huge. And I actually recently, like a few months ago, I prayed the surrender novena.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is something that I say, Jesus, I trust you. I'm putting everything in your hands. Take care of everything. And it's a simple prayer, but it really, it's giving everything to him. It's a total surrender. So even though it's short and sweet, I think that it does the job,
Right. And that is a good point, that it doesn't have to be. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up on it, or a lot of women get hung up on it, is that, like you said, it's not organized. It's not long. It's not, set every day. I mean, okay, I'm guilty of that. I'm very type A. I have my routine, as you know. And, but that works for me. But that's the important part. It doesn't work for you. So why would you try to adopt that? And right. I think you have to just, I think that's a good lesson in being confident that you're doing what you can do, instead of fretting over, oh, it's not like hers, so it must be bad, or it's lacking in some way. And sometimes, like, that surrender is really all it's probably better. Let's just put it that way. It could be better than an hour-long prayer that doesn't give everything over to Jesus. Right. And so I think that's a beautiful example of a busy mother in the midst of her overwhelm and chaos, just being able to say, hey, take care of it.
Yes.
Take care of it, God.
Exactly. And not, and I think that, like what you said, not setting yourself up for failure is huge. So I went through many times where I compared myself to other people and said, why can't I just keep this routine? I'm not praying enough. I'm not thinking about God enough. And I think that even surrendering that, just saying, okay, I'm going to do my best, and God knows what my best is. And also, like, taking on St. Teresa of Lisieux's, doing small things with great love is in and of itself a prayer. So I think about the hard moments that I'm going through. And if I can remember to just offer those up, that is a prayer too. And so that's been huge, especially during the more chaotic times, just knowing that, like, instead of complaining, about and feeling sorry for myself, to just say, okay, I'm going to offer this up, for somebody who really needs it right now.
No, that's a beautiful way to look at it. And so you have to have confidence to know that you are doing the best that you can. And a lot of people don't have that. And so that's great. And that's a good place to start too. So if you're listening to this, like, okay, you got one each end of the spectrum here. But we're different, but we have confidence that what we're each doing is the right thing for us to do. And it's not going to look like somebody else. And that's okay. So, I mean, that comparison trap is a horrible place to be, and definitely adds to overwhelm, because you're putting that on yourself now,
Yes.
like you're making it worse than it needs to be, essentially. Has that been a struggle for you? How have you gotten past that in comparison? Let's say not even in prayer, but just in whatever else might be.
Yeah. So I think that is like probably my biggest issue with homeschooling.
Yes.
Is the comparison, because I see everybody else doing all these great things, and I struggle with routine. I struggle with keeping up. And then on top of it, like, for instance, when I had my twins, I could not do anything. I was, they were all consuming. So we took that year off from school. And in the beginning, I tried to do school, and we got a couple of weeks in, and then it just, life blew up. The twins needed me. I was breastfeeding full time. So that was like 80% of my day.
Right.
I mean, literally, it was 80% of my day. And then they weren't sleeping at night. So I was getting, like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. So it was a really, really difficult time. And I felt horrible at first. And then I had actually my lactation consultant is a homeschooling mom. And she said, when I was growing up, I went to traditional school, but my mom got really sick one year, and my dad took me out of school, and I didn't do anything that year. Like, he didn't like home educate me. He just took me out of school. Wow. And I just, went to all of her appointments and all of that. And she said, I came back and I still did better than most of the kids in my class after a year off of school. So she's like, it's okay for you to just let go of some things. And so I did that year. And most of my kids caught up. I have my oldest, he's technically a year behind, but what is that in homeschooling?
Right.
And he's not, I think that he'll be better for it, because, boys mature slower or whatever. And so when he goes off to college or whatever he chooses to do, he'll be that much more ready, I think. And he didn't mind. We had it, we sat down and I said, do you want to try to catch up with where you were, or do you want to just go at this pace and you'll just graduate, a year later than you would have. And he chose to graduate a year later. But it was really, really hard for me during that time. And even after, even now, I have to remind myself, like, I'm doing what is good for my family. And I have a hard time keeping up. And we had, once again, we had to take a couple of months off after we left our house, from homeschooling, but my kids are they're still learning. And I have to remember that, like, they learn more sometimes on their own than they do with me.
Right. Yes.
And those other skills they can catch up on, we'll move at a pace where they'll be able to, be functioning human beings down the road as far as education goes. And so I think that just cutting off that idea of comparison. And when I start getting in that mindset, I just don't, I shut it off. Like, if friends are talking, for instance, I have a lot of, texts and stuff like that, and they start talking about all the curriculum they're doing and all of that. And most of my friends have started the school year already. We're not starting until September. Like, I just ignore the text then for a while. I just put it on silent, and I don't go there, because I can't. If I do, right. I start crying. I get really overwhelmed. I tell myself I'm a failure, and that's not helping my kids at all to do that. Yes. Like, so I want to just keep moving ahead and making a plan. And that's the other thing too, is that then I need to make a plan. I need to have, I do really, really well with lists, especially when I'm overwhelmed, but in general, like I have to make a list or I will forget it. And so I've written down, I have lists in my phone right now of stuff I have to buy for the homeschool year, of things that I want to accomplish during the homeschool year. So that has helped as well.
No, that's a great technique. And again, finding what works for you, and it's not going to look like what works for somebody else. And I wish that more women, no matter what their schooling experience is, because it's the same thing with whether you send your kids to a school or not, you're still going to compare. Oh, they're not doing this the same way. They're not doing that the same way. But overall, the one thing I did find that helped me was, actually, somebody told me this one time because I was feeling the same way, like, oh my gosh, I'm such a failure. I'm ruining my children. And someone said, you know what, you're doing your best and God is gonna fill in the gaps. And I'm like, really me for thinking that, forgetting that he actually has a part in this. And so
yes.
it's like, yeah, thanks for that reminder that it isn't all on me. No matter what the situation. That's been a hard lesson to learn. It's not all up to me. And I think as mothers, we oftentimes put that on ourselves. Like we have to fix everything and we have to make sure nothing happens. And that's really hard, a really hard lesson. But I think it seems as if you have a lot of awareness about, like, okay, maybe you start to fall into that comparison or that frustration, but then you're able to recognize that, and pull yourself out of it. And that's huge, because without awareness, we're not aware that anything's a problem. And so we just keep spiraling. So the fact that you've developed that awareness, and then you have, like you said, you've got your things that you fall back on. Okay, I realize. And that's kind of what we talk about with the cycle of depletion and breaking out of it, is being aware. So you start to feel overwhelmed, and then maybe you don't recognize it right away. And then you start to get really frustrated with everybody around you. Why aren't they seeing how bad things are, for me? Mm-hmm. And maybe you still don't recognize it. And then you get resentful. And that's where like the comparison will kick in. So hopefully you recognize it and you have that awareness before you get to the anger stage where you're just blowing up at everybody.
Not always, but sometimes. Right. I'm getting better at
it. But yeah, that having that awareness and then finding things to help you get out of it. And so in your case, lists, prayer, lists, I'm a big list maker. And it has to be written. I do so much better personally, maybe because I'm older than you, with pen and paper than.
Oh, no, I do much better with pen and paper as well, but I don't always have it near me because I'm not always organized. So my phone is always around.
Are there any other tricks, so to speak, things that your go-tos? What are your go-tos if you find your mindset not where you want it to be, or you're realizing you're in the middle of that cycle? Is there anything else you can think of that you would want to share with people?
I think for me personally, a good cry. Just for whatever reason, that release of emotion, like just kind of letting it out. And, I think that then you recognize that you're in that cycle, you're in that state of overwhelm, like there's something that has to change. And for me, like, that's the height of it. Like I reach that tipping point and then I just break down, and not like, I don't necessarily have like a massive explosion, but just a good cry by myself. And then I can pick myself up. Like that's when I recognize, all right, God, you've got this. I don't know why I've been, hanging on so tightly to all of the control. And then also, then that helps me it kind of clears my mind. So then I can say, okay, what can I do? And I think that that's a huge thing, is recognizing that you can't control most things and that you've got to set a certain level of expectation. But also that you have to recognize the things that you can control. So what can I control? What can I do? in this moment that will bring about a positive change, or a victory, because I think that as mothers, it's just so easy to just want to give up, to just be like, this, like nothing's going to change. This is my life. Like, I just guess I have to just trudge through it every single day. And I think, and I've been there, totally been there many times,
Yes.
But I think that as more kids have entered the picture, and especially as, I think that my awareness of my level of overwhelm has come to the surface more, that I need to just have one or two small things that I know that I can accomplish every day, so, for instance, getting all of my kids dressed every morning. I know that sounds silly, and probably like some people are probably going to be like, what? Like, that's just like, that has to happen in our lives. Like, I can't function without it. But sometimes my kids wear pajamas all day. And when I am able to get them all dressed, for me, that's a good feeling. Like, I feel like I've accomplished something, or laundry is my go-to chore. Like, I actually like doing laundry.
So do I, yes.
So sitting down and folding a load of laundry for me is a great accomplishment. And it also is I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it self-care time for most people, but for me that is, because usually I can put on a podcast, or I can, do something like that, and then I'll fold laundry while I'm doing it. And at the end, I've got a nice pile of laundry ready to be put away, and I've listened to something that's helped my own mindset. And so just small things like that, getting all the dishes in the dishwasher, or making it on time to an appointment. Like, all of those things are small, really, really small. But if you have just a couple of wins each day, then that changes your whole outlook on everything.
Oh, definitely. And then recognizing that those are wins, and not just, okay, I was able to do this. And then maybe at a different stage of your life, you'll look back at that and say, oh, that was so silly or whatever. But and you'll move to different wins, right? It's so much of it is recognizing the season you're in. I mean, a lot of people say, if all I do is make my bed, I'm good,
Yeah.
So, and I love laundry, so I agree with you there. Like, okay, that is a feel-good accomplishment. And so many times we need just those couple of things that can make us feel good about ourselves, which changes the whole picture for the day. So that's a really good strategy. And like, how do you build your kids into that helpfulness? Because really that's educating them too, showing them how to, run a house or whatever. So do you find that more frustrating to have them help, or do you try to get them to work with you in chores and things like that?
I mean, my older kids definitely have a lot of responsibility as far as that goes. But I will admit, I find it very frustrating to have my younger ones help a lot of times. So I have to, sometimes they're, I have them help and sometimes I don't, but we do definitely have, especially when we're home, we have an organizational system. And I'm married to a type A. So Scott he's very, very type A. So we have chore charts that the kids have to check off and things like that before they can get any screen time during the day. And so usually like between 2 and 3 p.m. is when we do our chores. That's because the kids aren't allowed to get on screens until 3 o'clock. Because, we do school and then we've got our duties. So, between 2 and 3, the kids get their lists. I say, all right, it's chore time. And we just kind of zoom through that, every day. That's on a good day.
Yes, right.
When everything is, we're at home and all of that, but, they still have responsibilities and they know their basic responsibilities, or, some of my kids, I can say, okay, can you do this? All right, now can you do this for me? And they're fine. I have other kids who like to know the expectation ahead of time. So, my 14-year-old, he likes to have everything laid out for him for the day. And so then
Okay.
he knows what he has to knock off his list. And then if I go and be like, one more thing, can you do this? He gets really annoyed, really annoyed, because that wasn't on the list.
Right.
That was not the expectation set. So that's why we have the chore charts, because then ahead of time, he knows exactly what he's responsible for. And he will do it really well. He will do it quickly. He's probably one of my hardest workers out of all of my children, but the expectation has to be laid out first. So my kids do. And I don't think that I could function without their help, to be honest. Like I know that it's teaching them good life skills, in advance as well. But I really do genuinely depend on their contribution. And that's the mantra in our family is we're all part of this family. We all contribute. Like that's just part of being a family. Like whether you like it or not, whether you think it's fair or not, we're all going to work.
Oh, that's beautiful, right? It's like your culture, your family culture is we're all here. You gotta pitch in.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So if I'm having a particularly bad day or something like that, and I need some alone time, I don't do things with my children. Like for instance, we often clean the kitchen together because, there's so many, we've got 11 people in our family. It's messy. So, we have one kid, rinsing the dishes, one kid loading the dishwasher. I have one kid, clearing counters and putting leftovers away and all of that. And it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of great conversation that happens, or sometimes we'll just put music on and sing and dance around the kitchen. But there are times where I just need that silence. And so I'll tell the kids like, I don't need your help. I'm just going to do this by myself. But that is not often the case.
Yes.
Most of the time, my kids have responsibilities, and I make sure that we all do stuff. So
no, that's great. Well, and so with you and Scott being opposites, how did you guys come to? I'm sure it took some doing to come to terms with each other's personalities and way of doing things.
Yeah. It's been a lot of tug of war with us throughout the years. I would say that's probably like, our biggest challenge is the fact that we have very opposite ways of thinking. But I think that I see the benefit to being organized, to maintaining a routine, especially as more kids have entered the picture. Like you have to have a certain amount of order, right? And I'm not an orderly person. So it's taken a lot for me to, well, first of all, to be humble enough to say, okay, I need your help. I see the good that, that is from this. And in return, I've noticed that Scott lets go of a lot of things because of that, like it's not he doesn't feel the need to control everything when I say, okay, I like your idea. Like, let's do this. And also I've noticed, my kids thrive so much better under order, all of them across the board. It doesn't matter what temperament they are. Like they thrive better with a routine, with having a known expectations. Like they, it's not changing, every single day kind of thing.
Right.
It's all laid out. And so I think seeing the benefit from their perspective, I've more easily been like, okay, this is good. Like it's going to take a lot of effort for me to get to be able to maintain this or whatever. And he works from home, so he's home all the time. So that helps too. Like I have his support, but I also have like him physically there if I need that help. Because it's not always so easy for me. And so I think that has been a huge shift in our marriage, in our family life, in just maintaining, not getting too overwhelmed,
Right. But I also have to believe, because I'm, more like Scott, that having your perspective kind of just loosens him up a bit too.
Yes.
Which, because, a personality like that, as I know, can be a little overwhelming at times to other people. So having somebody with that different perspective, like, hey, chill out. It's okay.
Yeah. Like this is what normal kids do.
Right. Right. we can relax a little bit at this moment. So yes, there's beauty in all of it, right? And
Yes.
so it's just being able to, like you said, humility, huge flexibility, being flexible enough to say, okay, this time I'm going to let it go, or I'm going to do it this way, but yeah, humility and looking for the good and being willing to see that it's good for your kids and to do it this way or that way, that's that is wonderful. It's wonderful that you've been able to, what a blessing you've been able to work through all of that, because it's hard. A lot of people can't, or find it very difficult. So it's quite a blessing. So anything, last thoughts you would like to share with other mothers out there who might be feeling a little like they're sinking?
Yeah. Just, that it's just a moment, like you'll get past it. I mean, even in the big things, like just, I think even being able to be present in that overwhelm is huge, and not being like, knowing you're going to get past it, but not thinking that that's where your happiness lies, where your joy is not there. It's in the present, and finding the ways that you can find joy in the amidst all the chaos. Whether it be everyday chaos or, something big, that comes in. And we've been, obviously, like you said, we've weathered a lot of storms so far. And I think that that's one of the hugest things. And also, taking care of yourself and your marriage, and fostering the relationships that you have with your children. Those three things are really, really huge. And it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be anything grand. It just has to be those little moments, for instance, like in the mornings, one of my twins, my girl twin, Zaylee, she loves to snuggle when she wakes up, and she's my first riser. So she comes into bed with me, and I am not a physical touch person. I have struggled with that my entire life. And I recognize it. And that kids need a lot of physical touch. And so it's very easy and it's very quick that I get touched out. But that's the one thing she really loves to do. So in the mornings, we snuggle, just for 5 minutes, but we snuggle. And so that starts her day off, right? Starts my day off better. And so it's just like small things like that. Or, I know Scott thrives off of a clean house, and it's not always that way, but I can at least have the basics done. So it used to be when he didn't work from home, I would spend the 20 minutes, half an hour before he would get home, and I'd say, all right, everybody, we're going to pick up. And so we would pick up the living room and the kitchen and the dining room, and just those three spaces. That's all he asked for. And he would come home and he would be so much more relaxed if I did that. So it didn't matter to me if it was a mess, but it mattered to him. So I wanted to make sure that I was doing that for my spouse, because, when you give, it's just much more harmonious, and, and you're happier in return. So, and then just saying, even like, if you need a break from, I know a lot of moms have just small children, so they don't, like, I right now in my season have teenage kids who can take care of the little kids if I need them to. And so I do things like go grocery shopping by myself. But there was a season where I couldn't do that. And so I think just either instituting quiet time, or giving yourself a half an hour after you get the kids to bed or something like that, like just giving yourself some time to breathe, wherever you can get it, even if it's like 10 minutes in the bathroom. I used to sneak, food in there, like chocolate bar, and go lock myself in the bathroom so that nobody else could ask for it. Right. Because even now, like all of my kids, if I eat anything, they're, they come and it's like a zombie horde is what we call it. And they're like,
it's amazing how that happens.
So, and that's something that I did for a while too. Like for the last probably 3 years, I eat my lunch up in my bedroom with the door locked. Like I will serve everybody else, get everybody ready, and then I go and eat by myself, because that's the one thing that I just want to eat without anybody asking me for a bite of food. Like, that's all. I don't even care if they're around me, but they're going to ask for my food.
Right.
So I can't be around.
But yet, everybody's being taken care of. So it's not like, oh, you're neglecting your kids. No, you're not. But you're recognizing, hey, this fills me up and allows me to do better the whole rest of the day. And so,
exactly.
Yeah, that's fabulous that you've recognized that and are taking that step. And it made me laugh when you said about Scott wanting the house clean, because I always have said it's like either one or the other, and the communication between you guys has to be, that's the key. You need to know, is he, because my husband always was, I don't care how much garbage I have to step over. I'm hungry when I get home. I've been working outside all day. I want dinner ready. So if I were to have spent my time cleaning up the house and dinner was always late, okay, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work for us. So it seems like you either have one or the other. Hopefully not both. If it's both, then you have to do some more talking.
Right.
But it seems like it's either one or the other. Okay, what do you want more? Space to walk in and feel at peace, or food because that's what you need at that moment? And like I said, he didn't care. He didn't even see the state of the house until maybe later after he had dinner. But that was what relaxed him when he came home after working all day. So communication, huge.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And the other thing I would say is if you can knock things off your list, do it. Like, for instance, I love, I'm very much a natural health kind of person. We don't use Western medicine very often unless necessary kind of deal. So I try to eat healthy, but in the season, we're eating a lot of frozen pizzas right now. And when we, 6 years ago, when Hurricane Harvey came and we were living with friends, we ate a lot of frozen pizzas during that time. Like, yep. It is what it is. And people sometimes worry, about kids having too much screen time or things like that. We've had phases where my kids have watched TV almost all day. Like don't feel guilty about those things. Like, you have to, if you have to knock things off your list, then do it. Like, just take them off, and that's one of the things, like my lactation consultant had said when I was, breastfeeding the twins. And then also after Gabriel, we had a really, really hard time with nursing. I wasn't producing enough and all of that. And so I was just so overwhelmed by that, just by not being able to provide for my son the way that I had been for my previous 8 children. And she said, okay, so what can you knock off your list for your mental health? Like, what can you just say, I'm not doing? I'm not going to worry about it. And so I don't even remember what it was that I knocked off my list, but I remember knocking things off my list, saying, okay, we're not going to do this, or we're not going to do that. I'm not going to worry about, certain things happening or being accomplished or whatever. And so, that's where, like, the frozen pizza comes in. Okay, right now we're using all paper products. Yeah. Like, but I know it's more environmentally friendly to use regular dishes over and over again, but you know what? We're doing paper plates right now because that's what I can handle. And so those kinds of things, don't feel guilty about having to do those things. Your situation is unique. And so you do what you have to do.
No, that's a beautiful perspective. And I wholeheartedly agree with it. Didn't always follow it, but I now can, can say that, yes, that is the way. It's just this beautiful combination of self-awareness, awareness of other people in your immediate family, and then that constant communication with God, just in the minutest sense even, but just that the stronger you build that relationship, the easier it is to get to the point where you're at by saying, you know what, I need to do this, and not feeling guilty and all that kind of stuff, and knowing that your worth is not tied to the fact that you're not eating, or you're eating on non-disposable stuff or whatever. that it has nothing to do with that. Right. I always like to say I'm doing the best I can with the information I have at the moment, and this is, the bar is here right now. Maybe later it'll be up there. But
Yes.
that's a great perspective. And thank you so much for sharing all of that, because I know that you, like you said, you guys have been through a lot in your marriage so far. We had our own mold experience, and I know the effect it has had, even now that we're out of it, on us as a lasting thing. It's terrible. So I hope that you guys can go in and enjoy your new mold-free home and have some time to just get back into whatever your routine is going to be, for this next season. But thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're willing to come on and share all this. There's so much in here that I know that many women can benefit from. So I hope that everyone who's listening will like and share this video. Share it with somebody who's struggling, because Jennifer has such great perspective on everything. So, but realistic perspective, right? You've admitted it's not perfect, and you're okay with that. So
yes.
and that's what makes it attainable, is the realistic. I'm going to feel the emotions I need to feel, and then I'm going to move on, from there and try to live in the present moment. So that's always good advice for any time of overwhelm. So go ahead and share this video, and leave comments or helpful advice that, if you have something that resonated with you, go ahead and leave that in the comments below. And then I will see you all again next week. God bless.